Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. Just a brief announcement. It's 11:35, so we're going to go ahead and start the service. It is being live streamed for folks at home who can't make it as well. Please go ahead and take a seat. We have plenty of space, so sit with your people. Just a brief reminder to please turn your cell phones to airplane mode, vibrate off, just so we don't get interrupted. And I will now turn it over to Rabbi Gruenwald. Thank you.
On behalf of Jerry's family, I want to thank you all for being here today to offer condolences and support, to allow them the opportunity to grieve in community. We'll begin the service with a recitation of Psalm 23. I'll recite it in Hebrew and in English. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, Bihino deshe yarbitzeni, Al mei menuchot yenachaleni. Nafshi yeshover, Nafshi yeshover, Yancheni b'magalei tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki elech begeit zalmavet, lo irara ki ata imadi. Shivtecha uminshantecha, Shivtecha uminshantecha, Hema yenachamuni, Taroch lefanai shulchan, Taroch lefanai shulchan, Taroch lefanai shulchan neged zorerai. Dishanta vashemen roshi, Dishanta vashemen roshi, Dishanta vashemen roshi, Kosi revaya. Ach tov, tov v'chesed, Yirdefuni kol yemei chayai, Veshavti beveit Adonai, Veshavti beveit Adonai, Leorech yamim. King David wrote, Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want, giving me repose in green pastures, leading me beside still waters to revive my spirit, guiding me on the right path, for that is God's essence. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod comfort me. You prepare a banquet before me in the presence of my foes. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and kindness shall be my portion all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai forever. The psalmist speaks of the valley of the shadow of death, a dark, narrow place. And indeed, our grief can feel often like a dark, constricted space. My prayer for all of you is that in time that dark valley open up to new possibilities, to joy once again, to memories that are tempered and by the passage of time. We gather today to honor Jerry Schreiber. In the Bible's account of creation, the Torah teaches us that God created the first human being out of the dust of the earth. And then it says that God blew into the nostrils of the first human, nishmat chaim, the breath of life. Our sages taught that we can derive wisdom from the way in which God created humanity. It's not a science lesson, really, but it does teach us something about what it means to be a human being. Each of us is a unique creation in this world, full of potential. What it means to be created with the spark of the divine is that each of us has something transcendent in us, something that is greater than flesh and blood. Nonetheless, the Torah also reminds us that we are but dust of the earth. Formed from the same stuff as the rest of the universe, our bodies are destined to return to the earth from whence they came. We all live with this paradox. We are part earth and part divine. We are, in many ways, mundane creatures, and we also have a spark inside of us that is special. Today, we lovingly return Jerry's body to the earth. It is an act of deep kindness and compassion. And today we also gather to lovingly accompany Jerry's neshama, his soul, on its final journey, and to accompany those who mourn him, that they may find comfort in community. In a few moments, we'll hear from Jerry's children, deep and personal words of eulogy for their father. But I want to begin by telling you just a little bit about Jerry's life story. Jerry was born in Brooklyn, New York, to Sam and Esther Schreiber. The family moved to Denver when Jerry was very young, and they settled on Denver's historic in Denver's Jewish neighborhood on the west side. Sam and Esther, however, divorced when the children were young, and his mother was not able to take care of the kids. Jerry, along with his sisters, Diane and Marion, lived in the Jewish home for orphans for 4 years. Jerry's adverse early childhood experiences impacted him for decades in many ways that shaped his identity. He saw himself as a survivor of a difficult childhood. Yet his emotional scars carried well into adulthood. After graduating from North High School, Jerry enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps. The Marine Corps gave Jerry a sense of brotherhood and family that he longed for. He was very proud of his service as a corporal in an administrative role, where he was stationed at Treasure Island Naval Station in San Francisco. It was during this time in the Bay Area that he connected with a young woman he had known from high school in Denver through his buddy, Mayor Goldberg. Jerry started dating Carol Ann Goldberg while she was taking courses at UC Berkeley. Jerry and Carol were married in October 1956. Carol was just 20 years old and Jerry was 21. Their first child, Stephen, was born the following year and followed in close succession by Shelley, Michael, and Terry. The family moved back to Denver, and a few years later, they had their twins, Julie and Eric. Sadly, Jerry's childhood traumas haunted him. Lacking his own models of healthy parenting, Jerry struggled to be a good father and husband. Jerry and Carol's marriage was not healthy, and they divorced. I'll let Terry and Eric share more about their experience and their relationship to their father. But in those early years, Jerry tried his hand at many professions. He initially worked in the family livestock feed business. He also sold real estate for a time. Then he became a commercial stockbroker. and worked for a couple of firms. Later, he went to work as a sales representative for a sporting goods company. It was during this time that he dreamed of going into business for himself. Jerry was an avid outdoorsman and fisherman, and he knew the rare art of fly tying. Jerry established his own company, which would become known as Brookside Flies. He started the business in his garage and struggled, as many new businesses do, to grow the enterprise. He set up fly tying operations in Guatemala and later, for many years, in Thailand. Jerry traveled extensively back and forth to Thailand for years, sometimes spending months there at a time. He was very proud to have employed many women and people with disabilities, providing them with fair wages, housing, and other support. Jerry met his second wife, Pat, in the late 1980s, and the couple was together for 7 years. It was with her that he gained his love of ballroom dancing. His third marriage to Barbara Schreiber was short-lived in the mid-1990s. And then at the end of 1998, Jerry met Valerie Horowitz through an online dating app, and the couple eloped in Las Vegas. They moved to Washington State for a time and then settled in North Carolina. And it was around that time that Jerry sold the fly tying business and retired. He found great joy with Val and Jerry's, and I think Jerry's sharper edges softened with age. He was fond of Val's sons, Philip, Russell, and Lawrence, and their children. Val admired his entrepreneurial spirit, his perseverance, his ability to push through anything in a way that didn't seem to bother him. In his own ways, Jerry made efforts to reconnect with his 6 children over the years, and they too made an effort to find a measure of reconciliation with their father. They observed, sometimes from afar, how he had evolved as he aged. Jerry could be quite charming, and he had many friends, some of them going back to his childhood on the West Side. He was loyal to his buddies and devoted to his activities. Jerry loved travel and the outdoors. He was an avid scuba diver, fisherman, of course, and he read voraciously, mostly nonfiction, including philosophy. He loved his little Tibetan terrier. He loved watching the PBS News and old episodes of MASH, and he loved watching golf on television. He was a proud Broncos season ticket holder, and one of his greatest passions was ballroom dancing, which he was very good at. Jerry Schreiber was a complex human being with many challenges. He was also an accomplished entrepreneur who gave livelihoods to people in need and a person who had many friends who loved him. Jerry suffered through illness in his last several years. Nonetheless, he reached the ripe old age of 90. He is now at peace, free from pain. We pray that the soul of Jerry Schreiber be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. May God comfort those who mourn, and may his passing bring some measure of peace to him and to his family. And I invite you to say amen. I'd like to invite Terry Schreiber forward to share some words with us. Thank you.
It took me a lifetime to truly understand my father, to grasp the depth of his experiences, his traumas, and how they shaped him into the man he was. As time passed, and as my work in public health deepened, my understanding of the social determinants of health and the profound impact childhood trauma can have on shaping a life, I began to see him in a new light. My father was a product of his era. Growing up during the Great Depression, a child of divorce at a time when it was rare and stigmatized. He spent 4 formative years in the Denver Sheltering Home for Jewish Children, a prominent Jewish orphanage located near Sloan's Lake, which was often referred to as the home. He and his two sisters were placed there while his mother was unable to care for them. This affected all three of them throughout their adult lives. His history wasn't just his personal history. It was a collective history of Jewish immigrant families navigating a new country and financial hardship. We, our ancestors and their descendants, have, I believe, suffered intergenerational trauma in ways that ripple across lifetimes. Estrangement, hardship, loss, and yet we persevere. Reflecting on his life within our immediate family, I see my father's ability to love in terms of bookends. We began our childhood in Denver surrounded by connection and love. 6 o'clock dinners around the table with a lazy Susan swirling with food being shared. Family trips to the mountains, wrestling with my father, and unplanned adventures. And in the later years, we found our way back to that connection during visits to North Carolina, where he lived for many years, and through phone calls, Zoom calls, and text messages. I saved every text message we exchanged starting in November of 2021. He would share health updates, daily activities, and photos, keeping me connected to his life. Just before COVID, my father once took the train from Carborough to Charlotte, North Carolina to join me for a visit with our cousin David Viders and my dear friend Michelle Thornhill's family. We shared a couple of fun-filled days and plenty of laughs. He would often send me photos of that time together, remembering it fondly. When my father first moved to Chatham Ridge, an assisted living facility, I visited him and we shared some truly meaningful moments. We enjoyed breakfast at one of his favorite spots, took in the beautiful views at a nearby state park, and spent time learning about his breakfast club. I joined him for a meal in the main dining area and helped him set up his cell phone so he could receive my calls and texts as he adjusted to his new surroundings. During our visit, he shared how much he missed his children while living there. He would send text messages asking about the weather or events in Los Angeles, always checking to ensure Salem was safe at college. He asked how much I would miss Salem while away and reflected on how deeply he understood the experience of missing his own children. The middle years, however, were fraught with circumstances that are difficult to address openly or share with others, including disappointment, conflict, and yes, moments of prolonged separation. It was in these spaces that I struggled most to understand him, but I also began to ask myself, what was his purpose? What did his life mean? For me, one answer lies in the incredible family he leaves behind. I'm proud to stand here today with most of my siblings, each extraordinary in their own unique way. Stephen, who could not be here, is a professional skier who has spent the last 40 years living between Aspen Basalt and New Zealand, embracing life atop mountains. Shelley, a talented ceramic artist and entrepreneur, bravely left her role at UNICEF to pursue her passion for art. Michael, a devoted husband to Kelly and father to Jesse, Adam, and Peter, an avid fisherman and fly tyer, and a skilled IT expert. Julie, a trained chef, winemaker, and mushroom entrepreneur. Eric, the multilingual school teacher with a gentle soul. As for myself, I found purpose in founding a Colorado-based nonprofit dedicated to addressing the opioid epidemic, striving to make a difference. And what about his grandchildren? Jesse is pursuing a career dedicated to helping others as a drug and alcohol counselor. Adam is working to address homelessness in New York City. Peter, a talented studio artist and now a college art instructor, pursuing a master's degree. Salem, a scenic design student in Los Angeles. My father's legacy continues through all of us, in the paths we've chosen and the lives we are shaping. Together, our family represents a legacy of resilience, creativity, and commitment, shaped in part by the lessons and challenges of our father's early life that was passed down to us. Another answer is the love he gave through his sisters, Diane and Marion, who remain embedded in our lives to this day. They have been sources of love, support, and connection. Their presence in our lives has been a testament to the bonds of family and the enduring power of love through hardship. I often return to a guided meditation that refers to a Celtic legend. Before we are born, we choose the challenges we will face in this life to learn the lessons we most need. If that is true, then my siblings and I chose my father and each other. We all had very different relationships with him and in diverse ways experienced his imperfections, his pain, and his struggles so that we could overcome them and become the people we are today. He built a professional legacy too, founding Brookside Flies and instilling in us a love of the outdoors, the value of entrepreneurship, and the importance of hard work. All three of his daughters reflect this entrepreneurial spirit that was first formed when our basement became the central location for his burgeoning vision and enterprise. Today, I am here to honor my father's legacy. He gave us, his children, a foundation from which to grow. His wife, Valerie, stood by him through his declining health, offering him care and love until he could be brought home. We appreciate all she has done to care for him recently and throughout the years. Thank you, Val. As we close this chapter, I reflect on the idea that he was not an easy man or a perfect father, as he was impacted by his childhood throughout his life. But perhaps his purpose wasn't to be those things. Perhaps it was his purpose to bring us, his children and grandchildren, into this life to challenge us to do better, to learn from his pain, and to overcome. Dad, your life wasn't simple, and your love wasn't always easy to feel, but it was there. And today we honor you, not just for who you were, but for what you've left behind. A family who continues to love, persevere, and carry forward your legacy. May you rest in peace.
Thank you, Terry. I just have to thank you for your open-heartedness and for giving beautiful words that are true to you and to your family, and I hope that they bring some comfort to your siblings. I'm going to read now on behalf of Eric, something that Eric wrote and asked me to read for him. When I was 29, I was in a funk, probably because I was turning 30. Had a lot of pent-up frustration, sadness, and anger about some relationships in my life, and decided to write letters to my dad and some others so that I could share my feelings, find some peace and forgiveness in myself, and maybe even hear some apologies. I was pleasantly surprised with Dad's positive response. He was in Thailand at the time and gave me a call when he got my letter. He said how happy he was that I was willing to forge a connection with him and that he was going to come visit me in California to talk about it. I don't remember the details of our visit, but I do remember feeling like a weight had lifted off my shoulders because I could let go of my negative feelings connected to my dad and move forward in our relationship. Since that time, Dad visited me and Julie on several occasions in California, met me in Boston, where I got to know Russell a bit, DC, where we got to enjoy the holidays with Diane and Susan, and Asheville, where we explored art galleries and sought out scenic views with Val. He welcomed me to his and Val's home in Scarborough on several occasions, and one time at his home away from home in Chiang Mai. He was so pleased to show Julie, my friend Danielle, and me around his home away from home and to introduce us to all the people connected with his business there. I remember a special event during our visit. where I got to see my dad sing karaoke. While we were in a market there, I saw him bargain like crazy for some souvenir. Upon getting the vendor to accept his price, he paid the original price for the trinket because he said he enjoyed the haggle, but didn't want the guy to lose out on making more money. Cobbling together some memories from the last 50 years, I remember well the epic hugs Dad and Mom had when we were little. They would stand hugging in the kitchen for half an hour sometimes, and I would sometimes join the hug for a few minutes before running off. When I was 9, Dad rode Mr. Twister with me on a Cub Scout outing to Elitch Gardens. I remember his stopping by the convenience store to buy Dove bars. He loved them, but thought that they were too dangerous to keep around the house. I think that's true. He was a good dancer. After going to a dance concert with me, he told me he thought the dancers were sexy. Dad loved talking to strangers. I especially remember this from going to the flea market with him some 35 years ago. When his fly fishing business was emerging, he went every weekend for months, if not years, to sell random items like surplus rubber boots. Dad got a kick out of talking to all the people coming by his booth. This was still the case when Dad lived in Chatham Ridge. He liked sitting out front so he could say hi to all the delivery people and the visitors and staff coming and going. Lastly, I have to include Dad's infatuation with his Tibetan terrier, Casey. That little dog made him very happy. I will always remember Dad telling me he loved me every time we spoke or saw each other. To finish, I want to give a shout out to Val. Val has put forth a monumental effort to make sure my dad was in safe hands these last couple of years. She's been incredibly steadfast and patient in the face of many mountains of paperwork, lost hearing aids and hats, and a medical system that is hard to navigate. She has also generously opened her home to me on my visits, treated me to meals, and offered kind words during times that have been sad and stressful for me. I will always remember how good Val has been to Dad and to me. Thank you, Eric, for those words. A brief message from Diane Lipskind, Jerry's sister. She writes, Jerry was the middle child with me, Diane, as the eldest, and Marion as the youngest. When our mother went back to work, I was in charge, which wasn't easy. Jerry was always outside playing with his friends and staying active. He was athletic and handsome. I always envied his wavy blonde hair and light blue eyes. As we grew older, the bond between us remained strong despite the miles between us, he in Colorado and I in Maryland. We shared many wonderful moments, traveling together with our spouses and creating cherished memories as a foursome. In recent years, Jerry visited me often, and those times together became even more precious. Now life feels different. Jerry is no longer here, and the void he leaves is immense. I love you, dear brother, and I will miss you always. And from Diane's daughter, Jerry's niece, Susan. When I was a little girl, my uncle gave me a necklace with a heart-shaped gold locket. I remember opening and closing the locket, but I never put anything inside of it. I still have it in my jewelry box. I think of him whenever I see it. Uncle Jerry, I will miss you. Love, Susan. Shortly, we will be concluding the service here at Feldman Mortuary and making our way to Fort Logan National Cemetery for Jerry's burial there. Those of you who wish to join us, please be aware that we are meeting in staging area B there. There will not be an escorted procession, so we ask you to make your way there in your own vehicles and at your own pace. But please be aware that Fort Logan runs on a very tight schedule, and we are scheduled there at 1:30 p.m. So if you are joining us at Fort Logan, we ask you to be there with plenty of time to spare. I also want to let you know that family will be receiving visitors today at the home of Terry Schreiber. I believe Feldman Mortuary is providing that address, but I'll give it to you anyway. The visitation will be from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. this evening. Terry's address is 1653 South Emporia Street in Aurora, 80247. Please note that in Terry's parking is limited in the complex. There's no street parking in the complex. If you don't find parking in the designated visitor parking areas inside the apartment complex, street parking is available a short distance away on Mexico Street or Iowa Street. Did I miss anything? We're good. Okay. I'll ask you all now to please rise as you're able as we recite a memorial prayer for Jerry. El male rachamim, shochen bamromim, hametze menucha nechona, tachat kanfei השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר רקיע מזהירים, את נשמת ישעיה רפאל, בן שמואל ואסתר, שהלך לעולמו, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתו. אנא בעל הרחמים, הסתירהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור חיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר אמן. El Male Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Jerry Schreiber, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that Jerry find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May Jerry's soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen.
Okay, again, thank you all so much for being here, and thank you, Rabbi Gruenwald. We do have a little bit of time until Fort Logan, so I invite you all to kind of take about half an hour to see each other, say hi, schmooze a little bit. In the meantime, though, if I could have 4 to 6 people who are feeling, kind of strong today, assist us with the honor of pallbearing. That is at the cemetery here, however. Yeah, not to worry. So just for this portion here, yes, a few folks to assist us to take Jerry into the coach, if you can meet us by those double doors back there. And as Rabbi stated previously, we have directions to the cemetery if you want to join us, as well as instructions for Shiva tonight at Terry's home in these little pamphlets we have out front. In the meantime, if I could just have a few people meet us in the back. Thank you.